Well, hello and welcome to Mid-American Gardener. It has been a while and we have missed you. It's officially fall, so things have definitely changed. And we've got some panelists here that are going to be talking about some weather changes and some things that we've been seeing out in the garden, and of course, answering your questions. So without further ado, let's have them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about their specialty. So Jen Nelson, we'll start with you.
Oh, hi, I'm Jen Nelson. I'm a horticulturalist, and you can find me online at groundedandgrowing.com. And my favorite topics are anything houseplant related, vegetables, and general horticulture.
All right, wonderful. And Martie?
Hi, I'm Martie Alangna. I'm a retired landscaper. I can't seem to keep my hands clean no matter what, but still, you know, I've had quite a little bit of experience, and I always learn something from this show. So, woohoo!
All right. And last but not least, Miss Fishburn.
Hi, Jennifer Fishburn. I'm a horticulture educator with the University of Illinois Extension. I serve Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties, so the center of the state. I can talk about just about anything, but my preference is I enjoy vegetables, herbs, and I'm getting into natives now. Really enjoy planting those native plants and pollinator plants.
Awesome. Okay. So we have a lot of questions and some show and tells to get into. So Jennifer Nelson, we'll start with you. We'll go with question number 924. This is about labeling perennials from Lynn. She says, what is the most effective way to label perennials in your flower garden? A means of labeling that stands up to weather, leaf raking, etc. from year to year. And I know that you are big on this because I've seen your method. So what a great question, and it's perfect for you.
Yes, I'm a bit of a plant nerd, so I do have the labels, but it's also just because you forget. You buy all this stuff and you forget. So I don't know if it's the most efficient, but it's a method that's worked at my house. And you told me to do this is my YouTube method here, like the kids, right?
Yep.
But these are metal labels, and the printed label on it, I used it's a Brother P-Touch label maker. So it prints on like a thermal tape. This particular label is 15 years old. I made this the first year we moved in our house, and it's still fine.
It went off now. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it hasn't peeled. It hasn't peeled off. I will say I was looking at, this is one of the older ones, and I was digging around. We had construction, you guys know, and so I've got a pile of these of stuff that got uprooted. And so I bought some of the clear tape that was not the brand name. It was like a, house brand off-label generic, and it's starting to peel. You can also buy, occasionally you find the label tape that is labeled like industrial strength or extra heavy duty. That I've bought that if I can find it, but it hasn't come off, and it actually is kind of a problem if I want to reuse a label. I haven't been able to scrape the labels off. I will say those kind of labels, that's the best thing I found. I've tried writing on them with like Sharpie marker or whatever, and it wears off over time. And I've looked at places like, I haven't bought any on Amazon yet, but I've bought some on eBay and a company called Paw Everlast Label Company, where you can buy big amounts of it. I don't want this puny little pack of 20. I've got a lot more than that in my backyard. So I want a big, fat, heavy box of labels if I'm really going to get serious about that. I don't know that they stand up to leaf raking, like she said in her question. They do get caught in a rake. They do get pulled up by my kids. They're not. I don't know anything that's not going to get disturbed. Completely not disturbed, but so that's my method.
Okay. All right. I like those. Like any novice, I went and got the cheapy plastic ones and wrote on them with a Sharpie. And a week later, you couldn't tell what was what. And I ended up, I had to send pictures to Martie because I couldn't identify my broccoli and cauliflower. Jen, I think I sent them to you too.
And I was like, I don't know.
No, they're this big. Really, Tinisha, help me out.
Don't go cheap on labels. I am your cautionary tale. Okay, Martie, we're going to you. 903. Let's see. Diane says, I have 2 azalea bushes. Last year they didn't flower. They're starting to bud this year. Now, this was in May, obviously, so we're past that. Notice that there was black growths on them. Is that a fungus? So, what do you think?
I'm sure it's a fungus. I am sure that it's a fungus, but it shouldn't be interfering with the bloom that much. A general cure for some fungi on your plants is milk. If you do, just get a little 1-cup sprayer, you know, they're like that big. Just 1 cup is fine. Put a tablespoon of milk in it. It doesn't have to be, it can be 1% or skim or whole, it doesn't matter. And then put 7 more tablespoons, fill it up to a cup with water, shake it up, spray it on your plant surfaces. The calcium in the milk raises the pH on the leaf, and the fungus doesn't like it. You have to reapply after rain. It's a real simple little home remedy, works really well. Or you can buy a fungicide of some kind, but either way, you're going to have to reapply after rain. And of course, for like a tree or something very large, you're going to have trouble with that. Also, if you have a particular plant you really like, you might want to shop around a little bit for a fungus-resistant variety, like garden phlox and monarda are notorious for being susceptible to powdery mildew, and this milk thing works really well for that. But there are varieties that are fungus resistant, they're mildew resistant. So you can plant those and you never have to do this, and you never have to ask that question. There's lots of other questions you can ask instead.
Yeah, you'll find another problem, right? So Martie, along with that, there's another question. Nancy has a question about her crabapple tree. She says that the tree, now this was from July, the tree seems to think that it's fall already and it was dropping leaves. She said she didn't see anything obvious to cause it, wanted to know what your thoughts were. And you think that is also fungus related?
I'm pretty sure that's apple scab. Mm-hmm. The leaves usually, if they get scabbed, they turn yellow early and then they'll drop. So she's going to have to, oh, and also the azalea, I think she said that was a black mold. The crab tree, she's going to have to get a fungicide for apple scab. Just go to your garden center, tell them what you're looking for, or just read the labels, you know, roam around, learn yourself something there. So, and you're going to have to spray the tree. You're going to have to do a couple of applications, but it's not complicated at all. Depending on the size of the tree, you can do it with a home sprayer, a couple gallons. You're fine.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Jen Fishburn, we're going to you, number 962. This is Gary, who says he loves the show and started digging sweet potatoes this year and found that they are very small and wanted to know if that could be from the rainfall that we had in the spring. So what are your thoughts on that?
So there are multiple reasons that he could have small sweet potatoes. First of all, there's lots of questions that I don't have answers to from him. But when did he plant them? Mid to late May is the time that you'll want to plant your sweet potato slips. The other thing is how he planted them. Were they planted in a ridge or a mound? That needs to be about 8 to 12 inches high, and you want to space your plants at least 12 inches up to 18 inches apart to give them plenty of room for those roots to grow, and your rows at least 3 feet apart. The other thing that he needs to pay attention to is the type of soil. They like a moderately fertile soil. They prefer about an inch of water per week. They don't like to be wet, but they can tolerate dry, but even consistent moisture, they'll grow better. They also are more of acidic loving plant. They like around a 6.5 pH. Many of our soils in our area are much higher than that. So it can be multiple reasons. The other thing you want to make sure that you do is after you harvest those sweet potatoes, and make sure you do that before a killing frost, is to cure those properly. They need to be cured at 80 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit for about 5 to 10 days in a warm and humid, and then you can store them after that at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So lots of things to be considering when planting sweet potatoes. They are an easy crop to grow, but if you want that maximum production, there's a few things that you need to make sure that you do.
So I have a question about the curing process. Where do you find a spot like that that's warm consistently to do that?
Good
I
question.
could, yeah.
Right now, that would probably be inside the house somewhere, or maybe in a shed. If you had a shed that you can close
Okay.
up and keep it warmer in there. At this time of year, it's getting pretty cool out, so it'd be a little bit more difficult to find those locations.
I'm going
But
to pay
the
for this,
60
but
degrees, yeah, 60
oh, go
degrees
ahead.
to store them for long term could probably be a basement, root cellar, somewhere that you can keep
Gotcha.
it a little bit cooler.
So I was going to say I'm going to pay for this later, but Martie, what did you do in the olden days? I'm sorry.
Well, sweetie, when I was a child, I'll tell you what we did do. We had an attached garage, and it was actually, we had a walkout basement. There were two garages, and the inside one that you could access from the basement, it was perfect for stuff like that. It had the water heater for the basement in it. So my dad would put cinder blocks on end, and he had an old screen door because, waste not, want not. And you put the screen door on the blocks, and then we would dry potatoes, we would dry onions, we would dry peanuts, anything that had to have a little drying time. That was ideal. And it never got cold in that garage because of the water heater. So that's what we did. There you go.
I had to do it. Okay, so before we go back into another round of questions, what's that?
I'm going to hit you with my cane.
You gotta catch me first. Before we go into another round, I wanted to talk a little bit about what to do to get ready for that frost that Jennifer hinted about. So, I haven't dug up my amaryllis yet, but we're running out of time. So I don't know if you guys want to all jump in and just maybe give some advice about what to do and how you winterize. Jen, we can, Nelson, have to specify, if you could give a few tips, and then we'll just kind of go through the roles.
Well, I'm definitely a do as I say, not as I do sort of person. I've been known to hear, frost warning being set on the radio and race home and start moving stuff into the house. That's happened a time or two. Something that you can leave outside until the absolute bitter end is your Christmas cactus, because that cool night temperature and the shifting day length will help it set buds. Some things
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like you know what you're doing or something. I did it by accident the first time I did it because I forgot and I left everything outside. But don't overstep it, because I also killed a really sentimental Christmas cactus that we got from a good friend by forgetting it, and they don't like frost. They are tropical. You will die.
There's a line.
I crossed it. But also, if you are worried about pests and that sort of thing, I have brought my stuff into the garage and kind of did that like a decontamination step, like let it hang out in there for a while. Usually things show themselves. I've brought in some like giant praying mantis and stuff like that on plants before, entertaining for the pets, but not so fun for everyone else. But I've had some people tell me they've brought mice in with large pots and stuff. Yeah, mice.
Oh, wow.
Mice and I do not get along, so I would let that stuff show itself in the garage if you're worried at all. Hose it down with your horticultural soap.
All right. Jen Fishburn, any tips from you?
So I'll look at it from the vegetable perspective and maybe some herbs. What I would suggest is know what is warm season, what is cool season. Your lettuce, your spinach, a lot of your greens, even if you had some onions still out, those are things that are going to actually tolerate and enjoy that frost. Some of those things will start to taste better after a light frost. But things like your peppers and your tomatoes and your eggplants, it's getting pretty cool. You could cover them, but I would recommend, if you can, just harvest everything that's harvestable. Maybe then cover it. You might get a few more things to grow on them, but it's kind of doubtful at this point that we're going to have warm enough temperatures to sustain those plants to produce fruits. So that's one thing that folks could do. I know I have a potted newer zucchini plant right now growing. I'll put that in the garage or in the house just overnight and put it back out the next morning just to make sure that it survives. I'm a little excited about that, having some zucchini this late. But and then from your herbs, most of your annual herbs will not tolerate the frost, particularly basil won't even like the really cool temperatures. So harvest as much of that as you can, dry it, use it. Basil, you can actually cut the stems and stick those in water where the nodes are, where tear your bottom leaves off and stick it in water. And it'll actually, if you keep it in somewhat of a sunny location, you can actually have basil up to at least Christmas or even later growing in your jar. Replace that water every few days. But it's kind of a fun way to keep basil going.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, ma'am. And Martie, what are you doing to winterize and get ready for the fall and winter?
Well, whippersnapper. Your amaryllis, you'll be happy to hear, is safe because it's in the ground or on the ground. You probably get away with leaving it out. The tops don't tolerate the frost, but if it's like near the porch or on the porch or something like that, you're probably good. Yeah, everything else. And also keep in mind too, like I'm thinking of I don't care about the rest of the garden. It's a vegetable patch like Jennifer was talking about. Well, I try to keep the tomatoes going just as long as I can, and I just throw a sheet over them or a tarp just for a night. And you don't, some people say, well, it's going to frost, I'm going to tear everything out. You don't have to do that because the temperature will always dip. Oh, it's getting a little cold, but then it'll warm back up and it'll be like 70, 75 for a week and two or more, and then it'll start dipping a little more often, but just a little bit of attention to your vegetable garden will extend the season somewhat. I mean, you're not going to get the produce that you would in July. But, I picked all my green tomatoes one year, and we had tomatoes for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
I kept them in a pan. Listen up, Sonny. I kept them in a pan with some layers of newspaper. I had a couple big half-sheet baking pans, aluminum, and I put them in a single layer on newspaper, the stem side down, and they didn't touch one another. And you got to check them. I mean, they were green as grass, and they just slowly ripened. I just set them. I think I had them up on the piano in the living room. It's quiet and really even temperature in there, and they ripened up. Did they taste like you picked them in August? No, but they were all growing tomatoes in December.
Yep.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
So
can't complain about that.
Heck.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, ladies. I appreciated that. We still have a few things growing out there, but it's starting to wrap up. I've got a few peppers left, and I actually grew loofah this year. Oh, I can ask this question. To dry them, I would like to give them as gifts. So do I let them dry on the vine, or do I cut them and let them dry?
I would cut them and bring them inside where it's warm and dry, and keep rotating them, because they can start kind of molding on the outside. If you start to see mold, kind of wipe it down with a bleach solution. That's what I've done.
I'm pretty excited. I've never grown them before. It's
really cool. And once they dry, that shell just comes off like magic. It's pretty amazing.
Hopefully they don't all rot.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, let's see. We're going to go back to Jen. Question 950. When this plant, it's about purple coneflower. This is from Kim Donnelly. When this plant goes to seed, is it likely the blooms on any new plants produced will be the normal pink color, or might they be green like this? And she submitted a photo. Is there something I can do to encourage this unusual bloom in future plants? I don't have any other colors of coneflowers in the garden that might have cross-pollinated to produce this unusual bloom, and we live in a rural area surrounded by woodland and agriculture, with the closest neighbor about a half-mile away. Any information you have would be appreciated. So what are these alien flowers?
Probably just a random mutation. I have a love-hate relationship with purple coneflower because I tried to, about 15 years ago or so, when the first orange ones came on the market, and then it was like every other color under the sun. I was buying them all, and I would swear that's where I planted it in this one spot, and then there'd be a purple one there like a couple of years later. And I'm like, what is going on? And I'm kind of done with spending the money. They will mutate and form these sort of odd varieties. And from what I have read, I mean, those are propagated with tissue culture. So they're not necessarily propagated by seed. And even though she's got a neighbor, she's the only person for so many miles, that's still a real popular species for pollinators. So all kinds of things are visiting that plant, and there's all kinds of cross-pollinating going on. I have a patch that I started with just white plants, and it's now a mix of white and purple. So it's gonna tend to revert, is the word, revert back to the purple color. That's the wild coneflower.
So was purple the original color? Is that where it all started?
Yeah. Yeah, and so in a field, sorry, I forgot to say that, but in like a big planting of it, you would just naturally see occasionally something that's not purple, and that's what plant breeders are doing when they see that. They're like, oh, I think this would be something people would want. Pull it out, propagate it in a lab with tissue culture, where you take like a piece of a leaf or a stem or what have you, and treat it right in the right environment in the lab and grow more plants from it, and then sell it to you for lots of dollars.
Dollars.
So that your local rabbit population can eat it and leave all the purple coneflower alone. But maybe I'm the only one that's ever happened to.
You do have a love-hate relationship with coneflower, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And well, can I segue into my show and tell?
Yes. I was going to say, I thought you had some of those. Go for it.
Yeah. So I brought some coneflower out of my yard, and I just want to give everyone permission who's watching to leave these in place. Don't cut them down. Leave them up over the winter, because lots of birds like the seeds from coneflower. The goldfinches are going nuts on them at my house. And if you have some spots that you want to spread coneflower to, this is a great time of year to break these up and sprinkle those seeds far and wide for next year. So don't feel that you have to mow everything down in the fall. It's okay to I prefer to do less work, so leave these up. let the birds enjoy them.
So if you were going to collect seeds, is it good to go ahead and plant them where you would like them, or sprinkle them where you'd like them in the fall? Do they need a cold treatment? I don't know the scientific word for that, but
I don't know with coneflower if they actually do or not. Some plants do. I don't know specifically for coneflower, but that's what we do, is we just kind of sprinkle them where we want to put them. I don't know, maybe Jennifer knows more specifically on coneflower, or Martie, but I don't know that one offhand.
Anybody?
I don't.
No?
I don't.
Okay.
Us oldsters call it a cold treatment.
Cold treatment. Okay. Cold treatment. Okay.
Yeah.
We've got about 3 minutes left, and so we're going to try to get in a combo question with Jennifer Fishburn. Let's see. This one's about tulips from Marcia. Well, this was in September. Is it too early to plant tulips, daffodils, and crocus bulbs in Springfield?
So depending on where you live in Illinois, mid-September through October is a great time to plant bulbs. You can actually plant them all the way up to the time the ground freezes. Although I would suggest trying to get them in a little earlier in that late September or October timeframe. So now is a great time to do that. Plant them about 3 times the height of the bulbs. So your small bulbs, 3 to 4 inches deep, and your larger bulbs like your tulips and your daffodils and hyacinths, 6 to 8 inches deep. Just make sure you're buying disease-free firm bulbs, putting the plate part of the bulb down and the nose part of the bulb up will ensure that they'll hopefully grow for you. But they can be planted just about anywhere that they'll get full sun. Mind you, the leaves aren't on the trees at that time, so they can be planted just about anywhere at this time.
Okay. Similarly, Barbara Bundy writes in, I have 100 daffodil bulbs, and she's wanting to get those in the ground. She sent this in on September 13th, wanting to know if it's too soon or now is a good time. So same with daffodils?
Exactly the same. Yes. Same.
No. Okay. Oh, I thought you said no.
No, now.
Got it. Okay. Now. Got it. Thank you. Okay. Ladies, anything else that you guys would want to add? Any other tips that you think folks would like to know ahead of a frost? Any winterizing tips? Do you plant anything in your beds, like cover crop? Anything? Is there anything there? Or do you just kind of?
You could plant cover crops. The limitation there is where you're going to find that seed to be able to do that. That's a kind of limited in most stores where you're going to find that. But you could do that over your vegetable gardens. Make sure you mulch things and make sure they're watered well going into fall. Anything that's going to stay in the ground.
Right.
Okay. Martie, you look like you were going to add something right there.
Yeah. Jennifer Nelson was mentioning leaving your coneflowers up, but I leave as much as I can. I know lots of people like to off for winter, but you know, those extra stems, beneficial insects sometimes overwinter in those, and extra those coneflowers. If the birds don't knock them off, they look adorable with a little cap of snow on them. They're really cute, and that extra stemmy business from all of your perennials helps insulate the crown for next year. And I'll tell you what else. In the spring, you don't have to cut any of that stuff off. It just snaps right off. It's been all winter. So much easier.
All right, ladies.
You want to get
Thank you. Thank you so much for all of your time and talents and show and tells and answers and all of that. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being patient with us during this pandemic, and we will see you next time. Good night.